Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Book of the Month podcast. We're joined by the full cast this month, the month of November, where our theme is going to be Steampunk. So I'm joined this month by Katie.
Hello, I'm back from the asylum.
Mostly in one piece. And we have Nick.
Hello.
And Peter.
I am here.
Rachel.
What's up?
And I'm in charge of this month. It's me, Dan Evanson. Hello. So, what do you guys know about steampunk? It's a subgenre of fantasy. Can we all sort of agree on that basic premise?
If I know Peter, he's going to argue. Yeah, there we go.
Depending on what happens in the book.
Yeah, how do you? What's the bare minimum, I suppose, for being a steampunk book?
I think it's a lot different than it used to be, because before I feel like steampunk was supposed to be like gritty and hardcore a little bit more, and now it's just like, let's throw gears at things and call it steampunk.
Airships. Always airships.
Yes.
Yeah, it's you know, it's not just having technology, it's the aesthetic more than anything else, you know? It's really the Victorian aesthetic is, I think, more important to steampunk than like...
But there is a difference between gaslight fantasy and steampunk fantasy.
Right.
Tell us about
what is that?
I'm not sure, but I know that there is a difference.
Gaslight fantasy or gas lamp fantasy is like a much broader version. It was actually coined to describe a specific comic book that I have forgotten. That it was coined by Kaja Folio.
Kaja Folio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was coined around 2006. I apologize for butchering her name.
Sorry.
And it has more themes of gothic literature than the typical punk themes. So.
And what are typical punk themes?
Rising against
this one.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, it's coming from the perspective of the downtrodden, the disenfranchised, the weak, the socially powerless, and using them as protagonists, looking from their point of view and rising up, like Rachel was saying, against the people who are in power, the elites, typically the people who have technology and aren't using it in a socially responsible way. They're using it to collect and solidify their own power. And so instead we see a lot of themes of anti-corporatism and down with the man, power to the people.
The book I read this month is kind of like the religion is also corrupt, and that's what they're fighting against, kind of.
Yeah,
Right.
After hearing that, I've decided my book is no longer steampunk.
That wouldn't be the first time.
It's fine.
But the thing is, you know, how different are these genres really? There's a lot of overlap.
Sure.
I think with a lot of genres, there's just a lot of overlap, especially with fantasy.
Oh, for sure. And I think what I described is where steampunk kind of originated. But I think language is alive. It's we should be treating it descriptively, not prescriptively, right? So, steampunk is the way people use the word. It's not, well, everyone's calling that steampunk, but they're all wrong. I'm the only one who's right. So in the end, people have, I think, pared down the meaning of the word to what Nick described earlier. It's just, it's the aesthetics, it's the era, it's kind of the social environment, and then you describe your technology in a quirky sort of steam and cogs sort of way.
Yeah, I'm probably with Katie this month. The book I read, although it was suggested to me by a steampunk author who I was speaking with a little while ago, I'm not sure it totally hits all those points. We'll have to see when we get to the books. But do you guys have any, like, how familiar are you guys with steampunk? I know I have read only, like, maybe 1 or 2 pieces before this month about steampunk.
I've read some Katie Cross. I believe that was who it was. She did, like, the girl in the steel corset and the girl in the clockwork collar. But I've also read Scott Westerfeld's Leviathan trilogy, which apparently may not be steampunk either. It's more of a Dieselpunk, which is something else, I guess.
It is. So I'm just gonna put it out there. I took a class a couple weeks ago at a writing convention about what are all the punk genres and what do they mean.
Wow, enlighten us, please.
I don't want to just stay. Okay.
Lobster punk?
Oh God, lobster punk.
Lobster.
Thank you. But Dieselpunk in this case is, I mean, right? The best example is Mad Max, right? It's everything's running off of diesel or gasoline or fuel, and you have similar the little person or the little people fighting back against the uncaring, massive bad guys, I guess, the oppressors.
So the punk theme is really the sort of rebellious nature. It started with Cyberpunk, right, in the 80s, and has expanded out. I mean, there's I guess every level of technology is represented at this point. You can go all the way up to solar punk, biopunk.
Right.
Do they have stone punk?
I'm not sure I've technically seen stone punk. I've toyed with the idea of something that my head calls henge punk.
I would love to watch like.
Is that like druids? I don't know what is.
No, I want to watch like a caveman beat up a bigger caveman. It's basically.
There's the anime Dr. Stone. Are you familiar with the anime Dr. Stone?
I don't know that.
Oh, that's brand new, right?
Yeah. It just started this season. The premise is that the entire world is turned to stone, and all the humans and all the sparrows, I think, are turned to stone. And then 3,000 years go by, and people start to wake up. And there's a kid who is the main character of the anime, and he's trying to put society back together, starting at the Stone Age and working his way up.
Fascinating.
So is it punk?
That might be I mean, it's yes, because he immediately releases Stone Age Hitler, and also has to battle against super strong Stone Age Hitler.
Man, I hate Stone Age Hitler.
Yes, his thing that he hates is old people. So he walks around destroying all the statues of old people that are still technically humans.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's a trippy anime. Yeah.
I've seen memes comparing the main character to like Jimmy Neutron or something.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a totally accurate statement. Yeah, he's kind of a weird. And a lot of the episodes are like learning about basic chemistry and stuff as he invents gunpowder again and things like that. But none of that has anything to do with what we're talking about. So we're talking about steampunk. Did you guys?
Nice segue.
You're right. Yes.
Really smooth.
I'm a professional.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Professional what?
Whatever this is.
I could say something, but it's not. I could say something, but it's not gonna be nice. So I've read the Towers of Babel's series quartet, yes, and I've read
Tetralogy.
Yeah. I've read the first 3 books because book 4 is not out yet, and that is considered steampunk. And I've also read his Dark Material series, where Lyra's world is very steampunk and that it has very punk themes to it.
Huh.
Yeah, I think for our purposes, the stuff we're going to be talking about today are Victorian-styled books that have a kind of anachronistic technology element, and but have pretty, just based on looking at the books that we have all called out, they're pretty wide-ranging additional sort of elemental genres. I know, like, mine is I don't even. We'll have to talk about mine. Mine is a little confusing to me, even after I've read it. But I know we've got a sort of adventure, which is like Senlin Ascends, and some other types. So
Retribution Falls.
Mine turned out to not be steampunk either. I just thought it was going to be.
Mine's kind of steampunk. They're kind of fighting against people.
You know,
so a lot of this podcast will be us explaining why our books are not the thing that they're supposed to be, because
well,
genres overlap.
I think that, again, these genres, you really can't narrow it down super specifically most of the time.
Blame Goodreads. I went on Goodreads and looked at top steampunk fictions, and I found it.
Oh man, you know, I'm also kind of I'm sort of developing a theory here, right?
What?
And as usual, my theories are probably wrong, and Peter will probably tell me.
Oh boy.
No, but I'm kind of thinking that, you know, in a way, another thing that I see a lot in at least the steampunk I've read, or in like D&D, the steampunk I like to play, is not necessarily worrying about being like historically accurate, but taking all the fun elements and just putting it, like, being historically fun. Just, you know what I mean? You take the sort of fun Victorian outfits and elements and way of speaking, and then you add in things that are, you know, convenient and interesting, like airships and trains and big cities. And
well, let me tell you how you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're not, though. You're not wrong. That was just a good intro. It's you're right. The steampunk as a genre, as a label, has left behind its origin and just kind of focused in on the part that people liked the most, which was the aesthetic. So the clothes and the mannerisms and the strange, you know, the quirky looking tech.
Yeah, I kind of branching off for this. If you look at Cyberpunk, it hasn't left as much as steampunk. If you look at the current stuff,
yeah,
like
it's stayed more true to its roots, I suppose.
You look like Cyberpunk 2077 looks very punky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's coming out soon-ish, I think, or is it already out?
I think it's next year.
No, it's next year.
Okay, but from the promos I've seen, it looks very much like the punk themes are heavy.
Yeah, I wonder if it's assisted by reality slowly being more like what Cyberpunk envisioned, whereas steampunk, you know, we will not go backwards in all likelihood.
Right.
You know, we're going to catch up to steampunk eventually. We're going to catch up to bio or solar punk. But steampunk is historically anachronistic. So
there's a sub-genre called now punk, which is all about kind of addressing the fact that we are currently living in a cyberpunk world.
Yeah, it's like biopunk. Has anyone read anything by Wildbow?
Nope.
No.
He wrote Wyrm, which is a very good and very long web serial about superheroes. He also wrote Twig, which is definitely a biopunk story. And Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can you say what makes it biopunk?
They have universities to make Frankensteins.
Oh, that's cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
like they want to do this?
Yes, it's very creepy, and it's not moral at all. It's just like the protagonist is he is a biopunk experiment who is very smart, and he works for the universities.
Did they
so
not
grow
read
your own
Frankenstein?
No, I don't think so. No, they used it as a textbook.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's
Oh, so you need to get bodies from at least 5 different people.
yeah. Wyrm is actually slightly shorter than all the current Game of Thrones books put together.
You said it's shorter?
slightly shorter. It's 1.6 million words.
I was gonna say, just telling me it's shorter than 20,000 pages. I don't know what that means. Okay, so it's pretty long though.
Yeah, I have to go by word count because it's a web serial. It's I think it's 1.6 million words.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So that's Wyrm.
How do people have time to read that, let alone write that?
I don't know.
He updates twice a week.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's like the Harry Potter fanfic that all takes place in the first year of Harry Potter's attendance at school, but is longer than the entire series.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah. If that sounds interesting, go check him out. He has his own website. Just type in Wyrm or Twig Wildbow.
Maybe you can pass the link on and I'll put it in the description. Sure. And you'll remind me because I forget every time.
Have you put in Dan's link yet?
Right after this, I swear. I promise.
Enjoy that, future people. Yeah.
He remembers a lot more if you slip him a $5.
It's true.
I keep throwing it at the screen, but nothing's happening.
Wait, so Nick, you get money for this project? Does that make you king of Too Many Thoughts since Nico doesn't get any money?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, none of us make it.
Makes him the embezzler.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, none of us make any money off any of the podcasts we do. In fact, we definitely lose money. That's for sure.
Well, you pay for hosting,
equipment,
time,
all that. Yeah, it's a fun pet project that we hope will.
Now I want the role of chief embezzler in some company.
Chief embezzler.
Just put it on Front Street. Yeah.
I feel like you can't get in trouble if it's part of your job title. I feel like that should be
right.
If our current president has taught us anything, if you do it in front of a TV camera, it's not a crime.
Right.
Oh my god. Let's not get into that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's leave politics everywhere, apparently.
Let's leave politics on Twitter.
Oh my gosh. I get a kick out of this stuff, man. I think that's the steampunk conversation, right?
Yeah.
We moved to politics.
The one thing the president has taught us about steampunk is
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, sure.
So let's sort of try to set a tone for steampunk. Like, I'm trying to think what popular media we could point to for people to be like, oh, that's what steampunk is. And the only thing that comes to mind is the Wild Wild West movie with
that's spot on.
The giant mechanical spider.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Firefly, but it's set in space, so it's not really.
There's
no steam present. Well, obviously there's the anime Steam Boy, which is very much steam powered. It's very good.
I mean, I think steampunk is sort of one of those elusive things that, it's like
pornography.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like porn. You know it when you see it. I was just trying to remember who said that.
Right.
Supreme Court Justice.
Yeah, I thought it was the Supreme Court Justice. Yeah. So
that exact quote was in one of my textbooks.
But you know what? It's something that everybody gets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna throw out there the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr.
You think they're steampunk?
Well, they have the kind of that.
A little bit.
They have a little bit of clockwork, a little bit of steam. It's in the.
Gritty.
I know it's the era wrong, but
feel, but it doesn't have all of the
aesthetic. Yeah.
Steam, yeah.
Did anyone watch the movie 9?
Yes. Are you talking about the animated one?
Cute.
With the stuffed person?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the movie. Personally, I thought the movie was boring, but the aesthetic is right.
That sounds right on both counts.
And I think that's the key here is that it's really about aesthetic. At the end of the day, there are many nuances that we can also talk about, but it's become overly broad.
Yes.
And never really entered the fullness of like the popular culture, right? Enough that everyone sort of has an idea that like, oh, here's a person wearing goggles. They're probably steampunk related.
There's a gear on their goggle. There's set. Yeah.
It's it's the seller in every con is selling something steampunk.
Oh yeah, no, it's like it's certainly blossomed.
It has its niche.
Yeah, exactly. It's grown to fill its niche. Niche? Nooch?
I will say that the leather jackets that I sell at cons are really, really. The steampunk leather jackets are really, really cool, but really, really expensive.
Like like these like long coats.
I mean, at this point, conventions have full cosplay gear that you can just buy straight up on the show floor.
Yeah, I was like
every type.
Some of them are longer ones. I tend to stay away from those because those are uber expensive. But some of them are really nice, but they're still $1,000.
Yeah, jeez.
At the Renaissance Festival that I went to recently, they have, you know, like actual shops, and there were like 4 or 5 of them dedicated to steampunk.
I went to a steampunk wedding.
That's awesome. Hold on. Drop everything.
Awesome.
Screw the podcast.
Pictures.
I don't know if I have pictures.
You know, I imagine like instead of like a bar, they just have barrels with taps. You know?
No, see, that's wrong. You're going too far back. You want to have like a whole bunch of bottles all like stuck to the wall.
Oh yeah.
Encased in these bronze or brass like holdings, so that you pull a lever and like liquor shoots out into the cup.
Someone in the party, like the bride, like the groomsmen's party and the bridesmen's party has a metal arm.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No, wait, quick, before we get into our books, because serious question for you. If the technology was there, would you have your own arm cut off to get it replaced with like a robot arm?
In a hot second, absolutely.
Probably.
It's like high maintenance.
Can I have robot eyes?
My normal body requires maintenance already.
Like,
so I would much prefer to go to the hardware store than engage in the healthcare system.
Yeah, the assumption here is that like the technology is good. Like it will vastly improve what your human body can do. I would not want to be the first person to have the right.
Don't be an early adopter.
So the assumption is that it's good,
technology.
But you have to have your arm removed. I mean, that's the downside.
Do they have the technology to make sure it doesn't reject?
See, you're thinking too good here. You're using your big brain.
Yes.
I think Nick's assertion is just that it works. It's fine. The arm is better than your old arm. Would you do it?
I'm saying, would you cut your arm off for a better arm? That's what I'm saying.
Yes, in a heartbeat.
Because I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I'd let a doctor do it.
I'm with you, Nick. I don't. Like,
oh wait, is the premise that I have to do it personally?
Well, sure. I guess you could let a doctor do it too.
I assumed a medical team would be involved.
Medical. I was thinking medical here.
Yeah, no. That's accurate. I think everything.
It's a DIY kit from the Home Depot. I'm not really interested.
No, I think the idea is everything is good about this, except, you know, really, can you wrap your mind around intentionally taking or getting rid of your arm for this purpose?
It's like getting rid of a good arm for a better arm.
It is, but
Would
it's
it have
also.
to be an arm, or could we get something else?
Can I get eyes? Because my eyes are broken.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're gonna scoop your eyes out with a spoon?
I have my spoon with me.
Okay.
Don't choke me, Katie. I'm sorry.
Should we get into the books?
What
No.
books?
Yes, now that our adventure in body horror is over.
Hold on.
It's only just begun, Dan.
I would want a steampunk liver. That's all I'm gonna say.
Steampunk.
Would it hurt? Because it's this metal, like, going around in the squishy bits.
No,
I
just
recant
every
my previous statement. I do not want a liver.
It's too late. It's too late. Amazon heard you. It's been listening, and it's shipping to you now.
If Amazon was listening,
sponsors.
no, if Amazon was listening, they would give us an Audible sponsorship.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Audible.
It's just every time you take a shot, it just sounds like a shift change from like 1910. Like,
question, where the steam go up or down?
Out.
Steam out. Yeah, out is the important part. It's just leaking from your ears.
Could I just get a little smokestack out of the side of my body?
Yes.
How would you
do that
sleep?
right now?
I would sleep poorly like I usually do.
You know what I want? I would want a steampunk spine.
Tell me more.
Because my back hurts a lot, so I'm just like,
Welcome to adulthood.
yeah. Also being female, so top heavy.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Maybe we'll all be digital soon.
Oh, I wrote an ethical paper about uploading. God, that paper was terrible and hard to write.
Well, I was about to ask to read it, but if it's terrible, then never mind.
Well, you can read it. I will upload it, but it was just
Okay.
really hard to write, and it hurt
Is it
my
ethical
brain.
for you to upload it?
It was the assignment. I don't know. I'm terrible at ethics. I need to watch The Good Place more.
Yeah, that'll
right.
teach you.
All right, let's
Now that we're done
dive in.
recording all the bits that Nick will edit out later, let's,
Wait, every one of my words is golden. You don't edit out a piece of this.
they just go into a special box.
Yeah.
That's
Called
right.
Peter's Golden
Special
Words.
box of awesome.
That's
Well,
right.
they go into a special file and then they get used as a teaser.
That could do.
That's Katie's new job, by the way.
That's,
By now you'll probably
based on
have
her first performance. I dig.
Yeah, by now you guys will probably have seen Katie's 1 minute audio teaser.
Oh yeah, that's golden. Actually, will it be both of them?
What you mean, like,
Really?
what's the other one?
The Foley artist.
Oh, the growling
go.
child.
I don't know.
Just that's our new opening music. Is all right. So
All right.
since we were bereft of Katie last week, Katie,
Ooh.
why don't you go first?
Good call.
I'm honored.
We can tell.
All right, so the book that I read was The Iron Worm Affair by Lilith Saintcrow. It's the first book in a trilogy. I'm just going to read the back of it for you guys real quick. It's super short. All right, so Emma Bannon is a forensic sorceress in the service of the Empire, which, Britain, and has a mission to protect Archibald Clare, a failed unregistered Mentat. His skills of deduction are... Yes, Mentat.
Okay, just tasting it.
Okay. How is it?
Minty.
Not sure about the mouthfeel.
All right. His skills of deduction are legendary, and her own sorcery is not inconsiderable. Unfortunately, they can barely tolerate each other.
Romance!
So,
You guys.
that was the premise. And a few things about it, I would probably have it labeled as manor punk.
Oh, okay. Sure.
They are so up on, oh, her hat was slightly askew. Oh no! And it was just, some parts of it were just horrendously like that.
That was when she realized that her hat, having been to one side by 1 degree angle too much, she had been sending the entirely wrong message, and she was mortified, and she could not show her face.
Oh my god, yes.
Is that about right?
Perfect.
I need more of that.
That is next week's promo. That's next week's promo. Anyways, that sounds like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, if everyone's heard.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I read part of that and I just couldn't handle it.
I saw that movie.
The movie is much better. What's her name again? Pride
Which
and
one?
Prejudice?
Elizabeth?
Jane Austen? Yeah. I can't. I try, but I can't do it. She's so boring. And even when they added the zombies, it was still so boring. It's too
Well,
bad.
it's-
Well, then, if you don't like Jane Austen, well, then you'll probably not like The Iron Worm Affair.
Oh.
It was really repetitive. Like, they would go to somebody's house, which they would not introduce at all, and then, there would be, a fight, and then they would retire to their estate, and then they would go to somebody else's place, and there would be a fight, and then they would have... It was super repetitive, and the words deduce and foxfire appeared way more often than necessary.
Why Foxfire?
I have
is-
no idea.
What is Foxfire?
It's just a different colored fire, I think.
Probably a
so
blue fire.
It was something for in the setting. It was a setting thing. Well, now I have to look it up. Thanks, guys.
I think foxfire is usually associated with like swamp gas and fairy lights in the swamp, sometimes called foxfire, I believe. It's like a blue flame.
Oh.
Okay.
So
Thank
that
you,
explains
Dan.
it a little bit, but it still didn't need to be there like every 20 pages.
So, most importantly, did you like the book, though? It sounds like you didn't.
It was
Okay. So yours included a magic, it sounds like. So is that, I think mine also includes a magic system when we talk about it, but is that, I couldn't really tell if that was like a usual part of steampunk. Did it feel out of place in the book, Katie?
Not really, but the way that they got the magic was really weird. So at each tide turn, their magic would be refreshed and it would like go into their jewelry, and it could only hold so much magical potential at a time.
Well,
was
all
strange.
of that makes perfect logical sense to me. Wait, no, it doesn't. What's a tide turn?
High
Like the
tide, low
ocean.
tide.
Really? Okay.
Would it be like
So,
half a day?
yeah. No,
Yeah,
doesn't,
so like once in the morning and once at night, they get their energy refreshed.
I thought the tide turns twice a day.
Well, you have
Right,
high
that's
tide twice a day and low tide twice a day. So a full turn would be a high tide to another high tide, for example.
Well, shoot, I don't know.
Maybe it's a plot hole that we found.
I've only been to the ocean once. I don't know the mechanics.
Is that
of it.
true?
Well, yeah, I'm
Quick, write that down.
Oh my gosh. Wait, no, that just like makes me feel bad.
I touched it though. I touched it once.
Although you have a bunch of lakes, right?
Yeah, land of 10,000 lakes, baby.
Yeah, you have infinite lakes, so I don't feel as bad anymore.
So if she lived in a desert, you would be depressed? I don't.
Well, never seeing
Oh, yeah, next-
never seeing the
next
ocean
week
is
I'm
like a
moving.
sad moment, I feel like.
Next week I'm moving to Arizona, guys.
Wait, for reals, yo?
No, I lied. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
She fibbed for comedy.
I used to live on the ocean.
So that's interesting then. So this, even though they had this major steampunk element, magic element, and all that, you're saying it was more about the Victorian decorum than anything else?
Yes, because she was mostly like, she would make sure that she always had on her gloves, and she would opt for a hat instead of a bonnet because, you know, a bonnet would ruin her eyesight's peripherals.
Does it, was she kind of an iconoclast? Like, did she, like, try to push those boundaries of the social norms? Or did she swim well within those waters?
There wasn't actually very much, like, lady to lady confrontation. In fact, I don't think there was any. But
Was
Was she
she?
the only lady?
she's not actually a lady. She's just pretending to be. Ha! And very often she would, like, utter a word that would make
Oh,
other
a
ladies
real lady would blush or burst into flame.
Yes, and that was so annoying too, because it's just like, oh, she's not like the other girls. All right, I get it. Okay, we can move on.
Manic pixie steam girl?
Yes, manic pixie steam girl.
It sounds like a worse version of Vin from what is it? Mistborn.
I loved Finn though. She was.
I said worse version.
Oh, okay, yeah. She was like,
There's an implication that she is a bad version.
No,
How dare you?
I liked her. She was fun. She kind of enjoyed being a lady.
Which one was Vin?
Main character of first trilogy.
Oh,
Fair.
How dare you?
All right, so since Katie didn't like her book, let's engage in this tangent about Mistborn. Is Mistborn
Yes.
Steampunk.
Yes.
Second trilogy, definitely.
No, they both are, but they I think they cover different ends of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's fair.
Okay, I think I'm the least educated here. I read the first book, and I would say no, but that's
Well, the first book is mostly from the point of view of like the slums and stuff, but really the second two books get a lot more into politics and intrigue with like the wealthy families, the aristocrats, and so there's a lot more of those Victorian elements.
And it eschews Earth, so it does a lot of the Victorian stuff, but not completely, because there's a whole separate culture. Yeah, and for sure the second series, the second generation or whatever, with Wax and Wayne, it's very much like 1910 levels of technology, maybe close to the 1920s when sort of the West is being conquered in the history.
Another great example of steampunk that we didn't mention that I just remembered is Avatar: Last Airbender.
The Korra.
But the Legend of Korra.
Yep, that's definitely it.
Which is, I loved that that change that they took there for the second.
Well, now is that steam or is that industrial?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call that steampunk, because they definitely industrialize, but they're taking. I mean, one of the things that impressed me about that spin-off is that they had the guts to move forward with technological advancement, which is something that so many stories or settings or worlds are afraid to do. They just they keep things static.
I think
don't know if steampunk fits.
Maybe not technically steampunk, but what I think they did is they went for, again, that aesthetic, but they kept it in their own magic system that they created, right? They kept it consistent.
Their own rules, which is great.
I think Asami, the character of Asami, follows like Dieselpunk rules.
Yeah. That's probably more fair. Dieselpunk's probably a little more accurate in a way.
They did seem to have
they had
cars.
giant robots in that show, so.
There were giant robots?
Season 4.
Yeah.
Oh. I watched it. Season 4 was one of the best. I just don't remember the giant robot.
Yeah, season 1 and 2 were kind of meh, and then season 3 and 4 were really good.
They had to find their footing, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
Katie, anything? Any sum up of your book that you'd like to make?
There were also horses that were clockwork, but they were made from regular horses.
That's terrifying.
Oh.
I disapprove.
You're welcome, guys.
What's the name and the author of your book? One last time.
Lilith Saintcrow wrote The Iron Wyrm, that's worm with a Y, affair.
So, would you say like people who like Pride and Prejudice and zombies might like the book?
Yeah, it's a little too stuffy for me though.
That's a very niche audience who likes Pride and Prejudice and zombies specifically.
I was trying to find a good note to end on.
I can't help it though.
Well, as a counterpoint to Katie's book, I'll go next.
Go for it.
Because I do have an appreciation for Jane Austen, and like in particular, in fantasy, I really love Mary Robinette Kowal's The Glamorous Histories, and like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. My wife and I are watching the TV show right now.
Oh, I love that
That's
TV show.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's not technically steampunk, but it's that era. It is gentlemen being gentlemen, and ladies being ladies. That sort of aesthetic. And so my book this week is Ironskin by Tina Connolly, and it's very much kind of a similar aesthetic, which I enjoy quite a lot. I think it is almost assuredly based on the book Jane Eyre. If you guys are familiar with Jane Eyre, which is a bonkers of a story because it's got mysterious fires and a wife that's kept in the walls, a secret wife, and it's one of those. Jane Eyre is one of those crazy stories where you're like, oh, this is going to be boring. It's kind of what Katie described, but then you get into it and it's just off the wall crazy. So
the only thing I know about Jane Eyre is I think Clara from Doctor Who, that was her favorite book, I think.
Yeah. Right. That's right. So Ironskin by Tina Connolly follows a woman named Jane who has been injured in the Great War, which was a war between humans and fairies. Previously to the Great War, fairy had provided humans with advanced technology that was all powered by this fairy light. And so human society had kind of advanced past the Victorian age. But after the Great War, without the fairy light, all the fairy technology is now running out of power. And so to supplement their society, humans have started designing sort of steampunk-like technology to replace it. So it's an interesting world where there are parts of it that are sort of advanced technology, but then it's all supplemented by this Victorian age steampunk stuff. And the society is still kind of in the Victorian age, where it's kind of like the fairy technology sort of stunted human development, and it sort of stalled out in the Victorian age, even as technology ramped up.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a very interesting setting, and it sets the stage for Jane, who was injured in the Great War by like a fairy grenade, and it infected her with this fairy light that powers everything. So she like leaks emotion out of her if she's not careful, because through her war injury.
Does she power devices?
She does not. Well, not in the beginning anyway. Her power expands as we go through. But to sort of combat the nature of her injury, she wears an iron mask sort of over half her face, and it's called Ironskin, which is where the book gets its title. So people who have these war injuries will cover them with iron to prevent the sort of emotion from leaking out and affecting other people. And in Jane's instance, her emotion is rage. So like if she is left unmasked around people, they will immediately start to get angry. And so she's had a very difficult life after her injury, because at first, she was I think like 16 when it happens, and after that, nobody can really stand to be around her, because anyone that does becomes eventually like just outraged and really angry with her. So is she leaking rage because she is herself angry? So she doesn't really know. Like, it seems because of the Victorian age sensibilities, nobody really wants to talk about their feelings. Of course. And so it's all very much sort of English, like everybody press everything down and everything's fine and have your stiff upper lip kind of thing.
Perfect.
So does this take place in, like, on Earth?
Yes, so it is Earth, and I'm not sure if it's England or like it was never really clear to me if it was like an analog or something like that, but I mean, I do believe it is Earth.
It's supposed to be like a Earth that diverged some time ago based on fairy contact.
Yeah, right. I think that's right. Yeah, they don't really talk about the nations or the politics or anything. It's even with all the discussion of like the society at large, the story is very like tight around just a few characters.
Is it a series?
It is a series. I've only read this first one, so I couldn't tell you anything about the rest of it. But this one was pretty good.
Does it feel? I'm gonna guess no, but it's like the part of my brain went to a place of like repair after post-apocalypse, because I feel like if we stopped being able to acquire new gasoline tomorrow, our world would look a lot more like Mad Max, even while we were trying to supplement it with wood-powered steam engines or whatever, then it would look like. I think it's kind of like the step after that. So the story takes place like 5 years after the war, and I think like that 5 years is where there's this sudden decline that is sort of like a period filled with a lot of chaos and the people sort of trying to get back into their lives. But like now, 5 years later,
things are starting to like pick back up.
Recovery.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So the story, the majority of the plot centers around Jane becoming a caretaker for a rich man's daughter, and her sort of trying to find her place in his home. So there's a lot of like Downton Abbey kind of activity where, you know, she's this very lower class person who is, you know, deep inside this high class family. The family is sort of like on the outs with the rest of society because it's a single father and his daughter, and the daughter has a delicate situation is how it's described, but essentially she can do fairy magic, and so Jane is brought in to sort of teach her how to behave correctly in polite society by suppressing her power. And you know, the story really went places. Like, I was sort of prepared for like kind of like what Katie described, something like very boring and really about society, but like, and this story went all kinds of places. There's a fairy queen at some point, there's the supernatural, dwarves are involved, and it really kind of like went off on me, and I was really impressed with that. I think like the only complaint I would have is that it's written in that Jane Eyre style. So if you are put off by the Jane Austen, that time period, the style of writing, you might not enjoy it because it's not written in the same in a really like a modern style. Like if you read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, you know, like that story is very much written in not a modern style, right? It's almost like a description of history more than it is a third person or first person narrative. And this is kind of the same way, even though it's a first person narrative, you know, she maintains the style of language throughout the entire narration. So if you're not used to that, it can be a little jarring, but I enjoy that kind of stuff a lot. So I liked it.
I imagine that's got to help with like the immersion too.
For sure. Yeah.
So how would you say it fits in the steampunk, or what type of genre would you give it?
I mean, I think it fits in between the sort of gaslight and steampunk bit. I think probably the rest of this, based on how it ends, I assume the rest of the series probably gets way more steampunk than this does. You know, I don't want to really spoil the ending of the book, but it seems like there are more paths for her to take, like the main character to take a lot more active role in the world. And the story definitely, I think, would expand outward into like the politics and everything, which is just not anything to do with the majority of the plot of this book.
So
well, I'm interested.
Yeah. So what did you read again?
So this is Ironskin by Tina Connolly. And one other thing I'll point out, which I didn't really realize until I was like typing up some notes on it, is there is only one male character. The rest of the book is entirely populated by female characters. I really didn't notice until I got to the end, and I was like, oh yeah, there's just this one guy.
That kind of reminds me of like the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence.
Yes. Yeah, everybody is, yeah, that's right. It's a nunnery in that book, but
yeah. But same aesthetic. And but I really like that series anyway. Sorry.
All right. So Rachel, why don't you go next?
Okay, so I read Retribution Falls by Chris Wooding, and it's the first book in the Kenny J series. And I'll just read a quick summary, where it's the crew of the Kenny J are about a crew of desperate people down on their luck, and they feel and they're led by Damien Frey. Frey is given an offer too good to pass up, and particularly, there was a reason that offer was so good. Frey ends up on a chase across the continent to escape The Deadly Manhunt. What I say about this book was I really liked that all the characters were kind of shitty people. Like, they're very desperate. They're at the bottom of their barrel. They can from here.
Is it shitty like grimdark, like where everybody's just murdering people all the time, or just assholes to each other?
They're assholes. Like Frey, like when he gets the offer, he's like, "I can just take all this money and leave," which I kind of like because it's different, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And like there's an alcoholic character who's just like an asshole to people. They're assholes. Let's just say that. They're also kind of shitty pirates. And the thing I didn't like about being shitty is Frey's main character trait for 3/4 of the book is he didn't take responsibility for anything, and I hated that. He blamed everything on his upbringing. I was like, stop, please. He does get character growth, but it's in the last fourth of the book.
But you enjoyed the sort of in spite of that?
Yeah. I found other things. The setting was very enjoyable, and there's a character that I loved named Jez, and her mystery was very, very enjoyable. And the intrigue behind the magic system called daemonism, where it's like somebody can control spirits.
Let's talk some more about that. What do you mean they control spirits?
Like, they can make spirits go into something that they made was took a pair of spirits and linked them together, and put one spirit in a cufflink and the other in a compass. So you can so that spirit always points to the other one in the cufflink.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is it all like imbuing items with qualities, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like the character that is the daemoness has a golem that that he's imbued with spirits, and he has a skeleton key and a cutlass that basically fights for him. And they're a crew on board of an airship, and they're just kind of shitty pirates in the beginning. They're really bad at their job. They're just barely scraping by, not really scraping by at some points. Yeah.
It sounds really fun.
Yeah. I was just really annoyed anytime Frey was the protagonist, or like the point of view character.
Because he's just frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Was that sort of the intent, or was that just a personal thing for you, do you think?
I think it's mostly a personal thing for me. I don't like that personality trait.
So it was a lot more irritating to you than it should have been.
Yes.
That's funny.
But he does grow, and he's less irritating, and I read the second book, and he's much less irritating, and he becomes less a shitty person.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
So would you describe it like a kind of a swashbuckling book?
Yes.
It's the airships and...
Yeah, it's Firefly, but you put it in Steampunk.
Is it Earth? Or a secondary world?
It's a secondary world. It's not Earth. It's just a made up continent. Like they world builded it.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone read Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher?
Yes.
It's kind of like that world.
Oh, okay.
It's like a different, yeah. And they're fighting. In the first book, it's mostly fighting against the government that accused them of doing something, but it was really just a setup. And that's who they're fighting against. And there was a good quote where it's just like, Frey is looking for freedom, but he doesn't know what freedom is.
So what kind of drove you through the novel? Like, what was keeping your interest as you went through the whole thing?
The mystery behind Jez, about her, because it drops like little tidbits about her life before joining the crew of the KDJ. Also, the manhunt was interesting.
The like running from the authorities, the chase.
They're also running from the most deadly pirate because they got a bounty on their head. And they're in the So it's very actiony. It's a quick read.
Does the pirate have like a cool name, like Steambeard or something?
No.
My name is Most Deadly Pirate.
Her name is like Tritica.
Oh, her name. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good name.
Did you just assume her gender, Daniel?
I did. Sorry.
Admittedly, I didn't give them a gender until 2 seconds ago. Yeah, she's just she was the daughter of a very shipbuilder.
Yeah, I'm sorry to everyone who heard me perk up at Lady Pirates.
She's also kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
We just learned a little bit more about you, Dan.
Yep. Put
And
it in
Katie
the bio.
wrote it down.
It's okay. I get excited when I about what's her name? Mary. What's that lady pirate's name that starts with Mary?
Oh, the one from history?
Yes.
Yeah, the real one.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but I
Mary,
remember the
Queen of Scots. Is the correct answer.
Man, if she had been a pirate.
I'm taking
Mary
like
Reed?
yes, that's it. Black Flag. Does anyone?
Yeah, everything about history I learned from Assassin's Creed.
Nah.
Does it matter if I spoil a little bit of Black Flag? I think that came out.
I think it's okay
That
to
was
spoil
the
game? No, it's
Assassin's
fine.
Creed Black
Yeah.
Flag.
James Kidd, aka Mary Reed, was my favorite character ever.
Yeah, that's a good character.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, because they just had a really good character design too.
Mm-hmm. I love that game. That's a great one.
Wait,
Yeah.
how is that a spoiler?
James Kidd is mostly just James Kidd for the very for most of the game.
It's a reveal that it's Mary Reed. I see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
James Kidd is supposedly the bastard son of Captain Kidd.
Oh.
Yeah. So, even though Mary is never like a captain of a ship, she's a really fun character and an assassin.
All right. So, what was the name and author? Rachel?
Retribution Falls by Chris Wooding, and the second book is better than
What's the title of the second book?
the Black Lung the Black Lung Captain. Sorry, I was mixing the third and second book together.
Black Lung Captain. These are good names. I like that. All right. Nick and Peter fight to the death for my amusement. Decide who goes next.
Hiya.
All right, Nick, you lost. You have to go next.
Okay. Oh man. All right. Well, I have an admission. I haven't quite finished the book yet. I'm not quite done.
If you didn't own the podcast, you would be off of the podcast.
But I'm close to done.
I finished the book for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Now just tell him how much he liked the ending.
See, I'm assuming it's the book that Nick actually read. I don't know what book he actually read.
No, I read Senlin Ascends. Well, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't read Senlin Ascends. I've read most of Senlin Ascends.
Okay, I've read Senlin Ascends and Arms of the Sphinx, and partially through the Hod King. So I've got you, fam.
Sweet. Yeah. So, Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft was sort of recommended to me by several people, including you guys, and my go-to guy at the bookstore. Every time I go to the bookstore, I find this guy, and I just tell him, like, hey, here's what we're reading this month. What should I read? And he helps me find a book. And yeah,
Does he
you
live
gotta have
there?
one of
Is he
those.
just always there?
he works there pretty frequently. I've only been there like once without seeing him.
I will say, the Tower of Babel series has beautiful covers.
I love the artwork. The artwork
In
is
my
fantastic.
head now, you take book advice from somebody who lives in the basement of the bookstore and just like creeps up.
Yeah,
and
pretty
whispers
much.
secrets.
It's better
into
than
her
when,
ear.
It's like
where I get my book advice. I get it from Reddit.
it's
No.
it's like the creepy mage whispering in the king's ear from Lord of the Rings.
There we go.
Worm tongue, Grima worm tongue.
I just do whatever he says. Yeah, he when I told him Steampunk, he could not recommend this book enough. And I believe Daniel, your favorite author, Mark Lawrence, was he the one who helped bring this guy up?
Yeah,
Or-
this started as a self-published book, and Mark Lawrence, who wrote we were just talking about it, the Red Queen's War and Book of the Ancestor. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he fell in love with it, and I don't remember if it was part of his. He runs a contest called the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off. I'm not sure if it was part of that, but he just started tweeting it out everywhere, and it kind of blew up.
Yeah, and I mean his name is on like the front of this book as well as like with a quote about how great it is. So yeah, I mean it's definitely steampunk in all the obvious ways. I mean, it has the airships, it has like clockwork spiders that are around inside of this Tower of Babel fixing it up. But it's also very different. So it's about the main character Senlin. He's essentially a headmaster for a school back home. And you know, he is in love. He romanticizes this idea of the Tower of Babel, which is this distant structure where all of the advanced technology of humanity basically resides, and all the people live in this tower. And he's just read so many books on it, and so he finally gets married and decides for his honeymoon he and his wife are going to go visit the tower, because he had never actually been. He'd only read about it in a book. And very quickly he loses his wife. And apparently this is very common, especially on the first floor, or outside the tower even, in the markets. They actually, you know, people say that you're actually supposed to tie yourself like with a rope to the people that you're with so you don't lose them, because it's so easy to lose people there. Because it's not only is this market crazy busy, but they're essentially these, I think the entire market is technically illegal. And so there are these cops walking through, and so people are constantly packing up their stalls and then moving somewhere else and resetting up, and just there's so much constant movement. It's impossible to find or stay with anybody or find where you are. Or,
So when you say that he lost his wife,
Yeah.
you don't mean she's dead.
No.
You mean that she's,
Oh,
like,
I mean
physically missing?
she's lost. He doesn't know where she is. Yeah, she's missing. Sorry.
Do you know where she is?
Well, I don't know yet.
That's fair.
Yeah, he didn't finish the book.
That's fair.
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Well, it is a trilogy, so
No, it's a 4-book series.
yeah, a tetralogy. Yeah,
A
sorry.
forlogy.
Yeah.
Any number after 3, I don't know anymore. I'm just lost. I'm guessing that he doesn't find his wife by the end of this book, because it seems like he continues up the tower.
Oh.
I would almost say it's even spoilers to know if she's alive or dead. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose at the point I'm at currently, it seems pretty clear that she is still alive. But
It's
Yeah.
a mystery.
now,
yeah, I mean, he struggles through the whole book with motivation, because he does not really know if she's really alive, because he doesn't see what happens to her.
Right.
And people just make assumptions about, oh, well, if someone went missing, they went to the tower.
and
Yeah.
you know, another thing about this mysterious tower. So, I mean, there are a lot of books. I would say like Sufficiently Advanced Magic by Andrew Rowe has this sort of, you know, the higher up the tower you go, the harder your trials and tribulations will be, and it seems to be sort of that way here. You know, every floor of the Tower of Babel has like a different theme, or, I mean, I would argue for the sake of the plot, it has a different challenge for Senlin. And, you know, another element of this tower is that nobody can be trusted. Everybody will screw you over and steal your money, or, you know, just lie to you outright to get what they need. And, you know,
Seems like a terrible place to go.
yeah, that's the thing. And he increasingly finds that he romanticized this place, and it's awful. And he's
Well-
not the only one who's lost his wife either. It's very common. So there are many people he runs into who are pretty much in the exact same situation as him, and yet they still don't really help him.
Are there any wives who lose their husbands?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The saying of the tower is women flow up.
Yeah, women flow up. And that means, that has as dark a meaning as it sounds.
Yeah.
But
I'm getting a weird kind of sexist vibe here. It's
it's not... I think it's more like trafficking.
huh.
You understand? Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is trafficking.
but this book, in a way, reminds me a lot of Neverwhere.
Huh.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I see that.
Yeah, because first off, the main character is a very unassuming hero. They don't really have any heroic qualities. They're not brave. They're not, they're timid. They don't want to be here.
Like blindingly naive.
Yeah. Right. And
they're thrust into a world beyond their comprehension.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, the tower has these weird rules of decorum and that don't really make sense. And yet everybody in the tower gets it except for him. And, so he's sort of just floating along, just trying to struggle to survive and get to, find his wife here. And it's really interesting. It's one of the reviews, I think, was like how there's never been a better, like, unassuming hero since The Hobbit, I think. Which is also another example of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really fun. That's all I can say.
I would add a little bit that, like, it has a slow start.
A little bit.
Yeah, and the world of the first few levels are so unbelievable. The things that happen in those first couple of levels, like the first 3, are it's as if it's more Alice in Wonderland than it is. The things just don't make sense. But by the time you get to the end, there is actually an explanation that I felt like the ending of the book really helped solidify how great the previous parts were, where if I had stopped before I got the explanation, I might have felt like it sort of was just all nonsense.
I would also argue like Senlin's kind of unlikable in the beginning.
Yes. I mean, he's kind of like what Peter was saying, that there is a sense of sexism, and I think that Senlin exhibits the societal notion that people have about their wives and about women in general in the world that's presented, and he has to confront that as he tries to save his wife.
As a wife, I would like to know what these conceptions are.
I mean, he's asking like fundamental questions sometimes of like, do I even love my wife? Like, why am I going to all this trouble for this person that I just married for, like, they were married for like a week or something like that?
Yeah, there is some important context there where like everybody in his hometown was basically like, why would she marry him? And so he constantly sort of gives off the impression that he doesn't feel like he's good enough for her. But at the same time, I think he also thinks he's better than her. Because that's sort of his personality, is he kind of thinks he's better than everybody.
And then he's constantly told that, no, you are not.
Yeah, because he's smart, he's well-read, he's the teacher. And, but the reality is, like, back home where he's from, nobody wants him to be teaching them. Like, he's always kind of he's always trying to teach people lessons, and they're always like, I'm just a farmer. Like, I don't need to know about the tower. I need to know how to grow wheat or whatever. So there is sort of that interesting bit about him.
And within the tower, everyone is kind of treated like a commodity. Like, human beings are a commodity in the tower, and that is doubly true for women in the tower. And yeah, he has to confront that and use it to his advantage in some cases, while also trying to understand like his own feelings about his wife existing in that conteast. I have not read the later books, but in the first one, at least, I felt like it was handled pretty well. At least by the end. So, like I said,
I haven't gotten to the top of the tower yet, or as far as he gets, and learned about exactly how all the technology works. But I do think it is pretty interesting. I mean, right at the beginning, we start out with seeing these airships. But then almost right at the beginning, one of the airships crashes and everybody on it dies. So that right there is like, how advanced is this technology? Is it really like being held together by like popsicle sticks and bubblegum, or is it actually, like a really good technology. And then there's we see a glimpse of the clockwork spider, but we don't dwell on it. He just sees it in the distance, but we know it's like fixing the tower, right? And then there's one other piece piece of technology, which is on the bottom floor, where there are basically these giant beer fountains that'll shoot beer up for everybody to drink, and they're like bicycle powered. So really trying to get a grasp of like what level of technology is in this tower and how it all plays together is still a little elusive at this point for me.
It's one of the last reveals, if I remember right.
Yeah. Okay.
It is.
So yeah, when you get to the end, hopefully it will make sense, because I felt like the reveal of what was going on in the previous levels and how it sort of stacked up as it went on was what really tied the book together for me.
You haven't gotten to the best characters yet in the first novel.
No.
No.
Well,
I'm on my
excited
second
about it.
read through of the series.
Yeah, it is a really fun read. It's also, you know, similar to Neverwhere though. It's one of those books where, you know, every possible chance something wrong happens, and there's never any like reprieve. You know, you never feel like, okay, we're finally in a safe place. Like, no, it's just constantly like things go wrong, and you're like, what more could go wrong? And just it keeps happening. Mm-hmm. And it's a little stressful in that way.
I definitely agree.
But, you know, that's sort of like Neverwhere. It's sort of like even like The Buried Giant that I read the first month. And those types of books are really engaging. So, you know, I'm not going to complain.
Does Peter or Katie have questions as people who haven't read the series?
Not really.
Yeah, no, not really. I think I kind of getting the gist of it.
Okay.
All right. Nick, what was the name and author of this book again?
Yeah, Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Pick it up. Give it a read.
Don't tell me what to do.
No,
It's
I'm
a
telling-
really good series. It's a really good series.
All right, Peter, you are the conclusion.
I am the conclusion.
Oh no.
All right, I picked up a book that I thought was going to be steampunk because it was set in the right era, or seemed to be set in the right era, and then there was no technology in it. It was just set in the era, but then there was magic. So, whoops.
It might count. We might be okay. Let's hear what it's about, Peter.
All right. The book is The Black Opera by Mary Gentle. And the idea of it is it's a world very like our own, set in the, I want to say, early 1800s in Naples. And the primary difference is that there are occasionally miraculous effects, largely around the sung Catholic Mass, and that sometimes people return from the dead, and they're called the returned dead, and they have they return in one form or another, and we see a ghost, and we also see someone walking around looking like a normal person, except they're not breathing. So those are the primary differences, and we see we learn very quickly that there's some sort of secret society that has heretical beliefs about God and the devil and other things that you're free to get into if you read the book, that is driving them to try to use the miraculous effects of I guess of mass, except instead of that they're trying to evoke it through opera, and they're trying to basically cause Mount Vesuvius to erupt.
What?
This sounds awesome.
It was so I really enjoyed it. There were a few weaker moments, but I did really enjoy it. It just, the caveat is it didn't have, steamships or airships or any of the weird, steampunk technology that I thought would be maybe a part of it, but that was fine. I enjoyed the book very much. The main character is a librettist, and if you don't, like I didn't, know any opera terms, you will by the end of the book, which means that he writes the words for the opera. And so he is recruited by the king to write an opera to counter the effect of the Black Opera, which is being undertaken by this conspiracy that believes whatever weird things they believe and want to make Mount Vesuvius erupt to bring that to pass. And so there's a whole lot of conspiracy. There's the kind of thrill/mystery of who can I trust, and is it safe here or here or here? Are we doing enough? And there's a love triangle. The book, the author opens with a brief note saying that she tried to keep the book as historically accurate as the librettists of old did when they were writing their operas back in the age. Which she goes on to say, since one of them once set an opera in the small alpine village of Liverpool outside of London, that you could safely consider this book alternate history, because that's just not accurate at all. So I don't know how much I learned about the geography from this book, or how much I could trust, but I had a very good time following the main character, Conrad Scalese, as he tried to write his opera, tried to find his inspiration in a very short time, tried to work with a difficult composer and get together the operatic principles to sing and put on this show. I had a really good time. I very much enjoyed a couple aspects that I almost never see. I guess the primary of which was that the main character is a out and proud and loud atheist. And I just never get the chance to read enjoyable atheist protagonists who are ready to argue with anybody in the setting about God, or whether these miracles are actually divine, and he does so with good arguments, and it's just delightful. What was that?
I can think of one character that fits into that.
Who's that?
Yasna Colin from Stormlight Archives.
I can see it.
Okay.
I know you haven't read it, Peter, but that's
right.
Yeah.
It's good to know there's another one out there.
Yeah, the last two books that I read, they had people who were fashionably agnostic, but that was it.
Right. No, this person is like, in the very beginning of the book, he's just put on a successful opera, and the very next day, lightning struck the opera house and burned it down, and people are calling it an act of God against the words that he wrote, which were, I think the opera was called something like The Death of God anyway, and so now he's being arrested by the Inquisition. And as he's being hauled away, he's saying, you know, really, this doesn't make any sense. There's no God, or at least there's no proof of any of this. And like, he knows he's already screwed. He's only rescued because the king needs someone to write an opera. But he's also just as happy to say to the king, you know, who is a supposedly a person of faith, you know, that, well, we know that these things happen at mass, but we don't really have any proof that it's because of a god looking down. It hasn't been thoroughly researched. I just to read somebody who is loud about it, who is unafraid, proud of his opinion in that regard. It's just very refreshing.
Nice.
Would you say that's like what the book is about?
Is it about atheism or his atheism in particular? No, I think his open-mindedness or desire to look deeper into things and find real causes instead of assumed causes, I think that is important to the book. I don't know if I'd say it is smack dab central, and that's obviously part of his atheism. The core of the book is really the race to create an opera in time that can theoretically counter the black opera. It's very much, I guess, kind of a conspiracy thriller set in the opera scene of Naples.
Did this make you like opera?
Well, I didn't actually experience an opera while reading the book.
I imagine, like, obviously you can't write music in, but how do they...
Mostly it's description. It's the author is telling us that so-and-so was wrote this series of notes, not in any sort of explicit terms, just he's working with the composer and they're arguing about these words or that melody, or
does it
the author
make you...
writes...
Sorry, does it make you more interested in opera? Like, would you go out and watch one now?
You know, it did make me a little more interested in opera. I don't know if it made me more interested enough to use some of my limited time on this earth to go see if I would more deeply enjoy an opera now. I know that I think I saw an opera when I was 14 or 15 or 16 or in that age range somewhere, and I didn't go back to see more. But 20 years ago, it's a different person, so maybe I would enjoy it now. It definitely
now that you're a
made me
refined
interested.
adult.
Well, I'm at least an adult. But it definitely made me more interested. The writing and the author was very much, very well communicated. The feeling, the emotions that you can experience as part of a great performance. That a great performance is supposed to evoke in you.
It's like it came from a place of earnestness. You think?
I definitely got that impression, and if the author in fact does not care for opera, then she did an amazing job of tricking us.
Right.
That would just speak even more to her authorship.
All right. What was the name of the book?
The Black Opera by Mary Gentle.
All right. Guys, we reviewed all the books today.
We did it.
Woo.
Another successful podcast. Well,
Maybe.
thanks to all of you for joining us here on the Fantasy Book of the Month podcast. And what are we reading next month for December? Did we agree on a theme?
Elves.
Elves.
Yes. Next month's theme is elves.
That'll be an interesting
I have
little
no
discussion,
idea what
I
I'm going
think.
to read. Yeah.
I'm reading something Peter suggested, so I'm going to blame Peter if it's bad.
We
But
all
I
read
also
Lord
get
of the
all the
Rings.
credit if it's good.
Nobody show up next time with a dwarf book and be like, I don't know what happened.
I picked this up thinking it was about elves, but it was actually about dwarves. I don't know how that happened.
At least elves is not like ambiguous.
Yeah. There's no. Well, somebody's gonna come in with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you think so, but
Tannis
guarantee.
Half-Elven shows up. Maybe I should read that. Oh man.
What
The
was
old
the
dragon
ear
book?
length of the elves in your book?
only 1.5 inches. No, it's got to
Not
be 3.
real elves.
Doesn't count.
No. This is
It's right
no
here.
true elf
In
Scott.
the dictionary.
So yeah,
Alright.
tune in next month for that.
For that cluster fluffle.
Ooh. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter if you want.
Right.
Yeah. Our eventual handles are on somewhere in the description.
Yeah, I mean we're up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you can see more and all of our
LinkedIn,
content now. No
Mastodon.
Don't
LinkedIn.
follow my LinkedIn.
But yeah, you can see more of our content on toomanythoughtsmedia.com or tmt.media. And read all of our book reviews there as well.
If you like alt history facts, follow Peter.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that brings joy to my day, and it was very confusing. It was not actual history.
Well, you figured it out though.
Yes, I didn't read the bottom.
Oh, well. I can't help you with not reading enough.
Cue the music.